In the 2000s, users on Japanese image board site 2chan began posting about Windows operating systems. They weren't talking about their specs or how well they ran, but instead imagining what they would look like if they were cute anime girls. The discussion grew, and these operating system girls became known as OS Tans. Each girl was given her own personality and designed to reflect the era, style, and quirks of the operating system she was based on. While OS Tans were originally relegated to 2chan and other relatively obscure sites and message boards, they eventually grew so big that Microsoft itself began to incorporate them into official products and advertising. But how did they come to be? Who created them? And why did so many people fall in love with anime girl operating systems? Today, let's take a deep dive into the bizarre phenomenon of OS Tans, their rise, their fall, and their legacy today. Also, if you are interested in this freak, we made a plush of a moth from my pilot Wastelandia. Has a little tail, has like hidden little tiny little paws in there. You can put milk in it and throw it against a wall. If you're interested in this freak, in this plush, it'll be available for a limited time. The link will be on the screen here. Everything that we make from it will go towards supporting the show and making more stuff in the future. There's lots that we want to work on, so if you're interested, please check it out and support the show if you're interested in it, and if you're not, buy this thing and beat it with a hammer. Before we continue, I just want to give a huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for creators to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website and engage with your audience. With Squarespace's intuitive drag and drop editing, beautiful styling options, tons of visual design effects, and a whole library of templates, literally anyone can build an epic custom website to fit their needs. Not only can you sell products, but Squarespace makes it easy to offer services and get paid all in one place. From consultations to events and experiences, you can attract clients and grow your business online with Squarespace. And for their extra professional little touch, Squarespace domains is a great way of giving your site a unique name. Every Squarespace domain comes with advanced privacy and security tools included to ensure that your domain remains online and protected. Squarespace provides everything you need to bring more of your dream to life, whether that means building a website or adding a professional email service. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Izzzyzzz to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. A huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back into things. The personification of animals, inanimate objects, and even vague concepts is known as anthropomorphism, and humans have been doing it since forever. This tendency usually starts during childhood, where kids often personify things like toys, plushes, and household items. As an adult, you probably anthropomorphize more than you think. We project human personalities and traits onto animals, we get spooked by coat racks in the dark because we think they're people, and we even personify vague concepts like death with things like the Grim Reaper. Throughout history, media has been filled with anthropomorphic characters, from the very first sock puppet shows and talking animal cartoons to today, where furries rule the internet and monstrosities like Skibbity Toilet and that stupid AI shark with the shoes are more popular than ever. I mean, specifically with like 4-year-olds, but still. Humans have an innate need to make sense of the world, and projecting human personalities onto basically everything that we see is a very natural response to this. Anthropomorphism has always been incredibly prominent and popular in Japan, with characters for basically anything you can think of. And if you don't believe me, take a look at the thousands of hyper-specific mascots found throughout the country. Toma-chan is a tomato, Nishiko-kun is an armless dancing character based on an ancient roof tile excavated from the area, and Wakapi is literally the mascot for a women's prison. Kitakeru-kun, the mascot of Yamagata Prefecture, is shaped like the outline of Yamagata and carries local produce in a suitcase. This is genuinely life-changing info. It's no surprise that in the early 2000s, Japanese internet users were some of the first to personify software and other online elements into characters with unique designs and personalities. One of the earliest examples can be seen on 2chan, the Japanese image board site that came before 4chan, where one user commented that the Internet Explorer stop button looked like a mushroom. The Internet Explorer stop button looks like a mushroom and it bothers me. I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I can't help it. I'll go and ask Bill Gates about it. So true. lol. From now on, whenever I cook hot pot, the shiitake mushrooms will look like a stop button, lol. It's been a long time since I've seen such a great thread. I can't take it anymore. I've completely turned into a mushroom. The post became a bit of a meme, with users even joking that they would go and buy Windows computers just so they could see the cute mushroom. It was clear even at this early stage that some internet users were beginning to personify and anthropomorphize certain aspects of computer systems, finding them cute and endearing. Around this time, Mo anthropomorphism, also known as Jijinka, was becoming more popular in otaku culture. Animals, plants, inanimate objects, and even just vague concepts were moified and turned into cutesy, big-eyed anime girls. While they were meant to come off as cute and relatable, unsurprisingly a large chunk of the 2chan otaku audience began sexualizing them and proclaiming them as their waifus. In 1999, the first example of a Jijinka based on an operating system, the original proto-OS Tan if you will, was born. OS idol Win-chan was created as a mascot for the popular Tech Win magazine, though rather than being based on a specific OS, she kinda just represented Windows as a whole. Her design reflected the color palette of the Windows logo with dark blue hair and a rainbow skirt, though in true OS Tan fashion, she was often depicted with little to no clothing on. Win-chan had her own theme song called Win Was Forever, which was it was definitely a song. Also created in 1998 was the toy iMac girl, often cited as one of the earliest and most influential tech Jijinkas. She was featured in a series of wallpapers between 1998 and 1999, which came in several different color variants to reflect all of the iMac colors available at the time. Both OS idol Win-chan and the toy iMac girl amassed tons of fan art and helped to popularize the concept of software and OS Jijinkas. Not only were their designs cute and fun, but internet users spent so much of their time on the computer on a day-to-day basis that they couldn't help but feel endeared to these anime girl personifications. In 2001, the manga Chobits was released, centered around an abandoned PC who comes to life as a human girl and falls in love with the protagonist, again showing that these computer software-centric Jijinkas were gaining more traction. But it wasn't until around 2003 that OS Tans as we know them were born in all of their weird glory. In the year 2000, Windows Millennium Edition, colloquially known as Windows ME, was released to less than stellar reviews. It was notorious for constantly crashing and freezing, to the point where many began mockingly referring to it as Windows Mistake Edition. For a few years, 2chan users had been complaining about the OS, and over time they began jokingly comparing ME to an unstable and clumsy girl due to the temperamental nature of the system. On August the 6th of 2003, the first canonical OS Tan was created, born from this in-joke, Windows ME or Mitan. Mitan is portrayed as a clumsy, unhinged girl who tries to remain upbeat but is always messing things up and running into trouble. Unlike the Windows ME operating system, which users found infuriating, Mitan was portrayed more as a bumbling victim of her own code than a malicious force. The OS Tan Collections wiki reads, quote, Mitan's appearance rarely varies and is instantly recognizable. She has green hair and long braided pigtails and wears a maid outfit with an exclamation mark badge on the front modeled after the Windows era icon. She frequently carries a scallion as a weapon, sometimes a crowbar instead, to defend herself from malware attacks, this being a pun on a Japanese antivirus software. With the popularity of Mitan, 2chan users began creating different operating system girls, basing their designs and personality off of different various real-world operating systems and their bugs and quirks. So who exactly were these other characters? Windows 95 was seen as a more reliable, refined operating system, and thus 95tan was depicted as a mature, sensible girl wearing a traditional kimono. She wears a ribbon in the colors of the Windows logo, and the pattern on her kimono is taken from a desktop wallpaper included with Japanese editions of Windows 95 called HANA256.bmp. She's often shown to be unfamiliar with newer technology, and according to the OS Collections wiki, has an intense hatred for the Apple Tans. Yes, operating system-based racism exists within the world of OS Tan. Windows 98 was represented by two young sisters, 98 Tan and 98 SE Tan, SE standing for second edition. They're often depicted piloting these weird snack box mecha suits. The design of the boxes are based on the Vulcan 300 toy from the anime Zatch Bell, but aside from that, it's kind of impossible to know how this in-joke even began or why. I guess someone on 2chan made a passing reference and it somehow spiraled into a popular in-joke that became a canonical part of her design. There's definitely some questionable stuff on 98 Tan's wiki page. It says that she's sometimes depicted as a futanari, even though she's also literally referred to as a small preteen girl on the same page. You're like, you know, why is she even being depicted like that at all if she's supposedly a child? It's one of those things like she's a 13-year-old girl, but she's also a fictional operating system, so it's fine. She's actually 1,000 years old in dragon years, so it's not creepy, okay? You know, I'm gonna be bold and say, I think it's creepy. Yes, I'm brave. One of the most popular early OS Tans was Windows 2000 or 2K Tan, and looking at her design I think it's pretty clear why. Compared to the other early OS Tan girls, her design is a lot more bright and vibrant, with bright blue hair, a rainbow outfit in the Windows colors, and hair clips that look like cat ears. This was sort of a play on words since 2K in Japanese is Nike and the meowing sound is nya, so she was jokingly nicknamed Nyaki. Because of Windows 2000's reputation as a stable, reliable operating system, 2K Tan was depicted as intelligent, professional, and a sort of guardian / older sister figure for the other operating systems, especially Mitan. She basically came off as this nerdy cyber catgirl warrior, which was obviously very appealing to the otaku audience. Today, Windows XP is praised as one of the most innovative, well-received operating systems, famous for its iconic startup sound and desktop backgrounds, all of which have embedded themselves as staples of the Y2K nostalgia aesthetic. A lot of people look back on it with rose-tinted glasses as this perfect, flawless operating system, a symbol of how much better things were in the good old days. But the existence of XP Tan kind of challenges all of that.
Windows XP 起動しました
When XP first released, it actually had way more of a mixed reception. It was criticized as being too bloated and packed with unnecessary features, and this was reflected in XP Tan's design in its own weird way. The OS Collections wiki reads, quote, "As Windows XP was originally criticized for bloating a system and being very pretty without being equally as useful, XP Tan wears tight clothing and has large breasts. An early alternate outfit was especially skimpy, wearing a blue miniskirt, high-heeled shoes, and a midriff-bearing tube top with XP on the front. She usually dresses in a blue and white stylized schoolgirl outfit with ribbons and detached sleeves for decorations. XP Tan's large chest was meant to represent her high memory storage, and soon this became kind of a meme within the fandom, with future OS Tans having breast sizes that corresponded with each system's level of memory. This was just a silly joke within the fandom, but it also did go to show the increasing rate at which many were just sexualizing the characters and turning them into waifus rather than just cute mascots. There were many other OS Tans created during this early era, including Windows NT, who had two designs. One was a blue-haired dog girl due to NT sounding like Inuti, like Shiba Inu, and one was called NT Mama, a purple-haired woman who was depicted as a motherly figure for the other OS Tans. Windows 3.1 Tan had this kind of purple gothic Lolita thing going on, though tended to be less popular due to her relative obscurity. Windows CE, which due to the OS being designed for smaller devices, was depicted as a small fairy with a USB cable on. MS-DOS Tan was a shy girl with pigtails who would lurk around corners, a nod to the fact that many older operating systems were based off of MS-DOS and it was constantly there, out of sight, lurking in the background. MS-DOS was sometimes instead depicted as a black cat sidekick. Windows 3.1 Tan in particular was often shown with this cat, as 3.1 needed MS-DOS to run. People even began making OS Tans based on different versions of Windows Server, which is basically a business edition of Windows. 2003 Server was depicted as a half girl, half fish, since the Japanese word for server sounds kind of similar to the word for mackerel. She was sometimes a cutesy chibi anime girl with a fishtail and Microsoft logos on her bows, but she was just as often shown as this weird fish homunculus thing who was often eaten by cats and even the other OS Tan girls. There were also male counterparts created for each operating system, which were called OS Kuns. The main cast of OS Tans got their own OS Kun counterparts, including 95-kun, 2K-kun, and Mi-kun. However, the OS Kuns were far less popular and didn't really take off, probably because the whole appeal for a lot of otakus was that the OS Tans were cute big booby waifus. As more and more characters were created, 2chan users began to develop lore for the world that they inhabited. They created a sort of anon otaku self-insert called Toshiaki, a name which came from an early 2chan meme where B users were called Toshiaki as a reference to an early default username based on a troll. It's a whole thing, it's a whole in-joke, there's lore there, you don't need to know the backstory. Toshiaki was written to be a college student who was basically a shut-in and spent all his time on computers, so it was essentially a personification of the average 2chan user. And like all self-insert characters, he was pure wish fulfillment. All of his operating systems magically came to life as the OS Tan girls who called them his master and did housework for him. Cool. Weird misogyny aside, I think the phenomenon of OS Tan and this quite literal depiction of home computers coming to life really highlights how some people were interpreting the rise of the home computer. Computers were suddenly everywhere, they were everything, and while some were resistant to this change and suspicious of this new technology, others were embracing it to the point where they were seeing their computers as friends, or sometimes more than friends. In the early days, the OS Tan girls were relegated to comic strips and fan art, so the lore was a bit all over the place. But in April of 2004, a fake anime intro called Troubled Windows was released that not only helped to expand and solidify the OS Tan canon, but helped to catapult the fandom out of obscurity. Troubled Windows featured Mi-tan as the main character alongside 95, 98, 2K, and XP. It introduced a new character, Dr. Norton, who was based on the Norton antivirus software and depicted as a creepy old doctor who perved on the OS girls. From the wiki, quote, Dr. Norton is an eccentric older doctor who often requests routine checkups from the OS Tans even when they are perfectly healthy. However, his intentions are solely related to his curiosity about their bodies. Ew. Definitely one of the more uncomfortable and dare I say creepy aspects of the OS Tan lore. Troubled Windows was huge within the fandom, and it gained even more widespread popularity once it was posted to a brand new video sharing site that launched in 2005, YouTube. You may have heard of it. Troubled Windows spawned several other fan videos, including a fake anime ending theme and countless flash animations of the OS Tans. There was also tons of fan-made merch, one of the most well-known being the Troubled Windows OS Tan fanbook released in July of 2005. It included character bios, lore explanations, and comic strips, one of which included Dr. Norton being Dr. Norton. The fanbook even came with a set of figurines of Mi-tan, 95-tan, and XP-tan. The UU company released a figurine of Mi-tan, one of the most well-sculpted, detailed figurines that had been released yet, and over time several other OS Tan girls got their own figurines too. Looking on eBay, OS Tan merch seems to be pretty few and far between, but the items that are listed tend to be on the pricier side due to their rarity. The 2005 fanbook and the figurines that came packaged with it are the most common item to see, and the least pricey being around 100 to 160 Australian dollars. However, this XP-tan figurine is nearly 700. These mini keychains by Pink Company go for at least 150 to 200 AUD each, and this plush toy of Mi-chan regularly goes for $600 to $700. With merch, fan projects, and fan art flowing in, this explosion in popularity marked a significant moment in the fandom. Suddenly, it was no longer an obscure 2chan in-joke, but instead a quickly expanding fandom, and soon fans began looking outside of the Windows operating system for character ideas. Mac-tan, the Mac-tan that Windows 95-tan was bigoted towards, was depicted as a blonde girl with a sleek white outfit and an apple on her head. She was often shown holding a bomb, which was the error symbol for Macs at the time. While several individual designs for different Mac operating systems were created, for example Mac OS 9-tan, none of these really took off, and instead Mac-tan was kind of just used as a catch-all character for all Mac operating systems. Looking back, there are a lot of parallels between Mac-tan and and her predecessor, the toy iMac girl, one of the first original OS Jijinkas. Linux Tan was often depicted wearing a suit of penguin armor. Firefox was unsurprisingly a fox girl who was best friends with Mozilla Thunderbird or Thunderbird Tan. Opera Tan wore a blue and red outfit to represent the flag of Iceland, the home country of the Opera CEO, and she brandished a wand to represent Opera's wand function. It's worth noting that during this time, everyone was trying to create the next big OS Tan, so getting in early to an untapped operating system was crucial. This is why when trolling the depths of the OS Tan wiki, there's just this endless list of bizarre, obscure operating system girls based on OSs that you've never even heard of. Basically, even at this early point, the fandom had already gotten to the bottom of the barrel, jumped the shark, if you will. You had characters like Tiny OS Tan based on an embedded OS used in wireless sensor networks, which was also apparently used in Estonia's first satellite. The more you know. There was Geniac Tan based off of an extremely early toy computer operated with rotary switches, which was sold as an educational toy in 1955. And who could forget H316 Tan based on the 1969 Honeywell kitchen computer, which never even made it to market because it was too hard to use and insanely expensive. To quote the wiki directly, it cost $10,000 in 1969 money. A lot of the Linux OSs are particularly kooky. You have Fried Chicken Linux, a system designed for the University of Copenhagen whose logo supposedly looked like a piece of fried chicken. Barbie Linux, who was based off of a rumored 2006 Linux release aimed at younger girls, though due to the lack of any screenshots or technical details, it's widely believed to be a hoax. Chainsaw Linux was designed for a video production company, and the corresponding OS Tan has red eyes and chainsaws decorating her hair. Damn Small Linux was created to fit into only 50 megabytes, and thus Damn Small Linux Tan is only 6 inches tall. And there's even a puppy girl Linux OS Tan, because of course there is. People even began making non-OS Tans such as console Tans and site Tans, one of the most infamous being Wikipedia Tan. In a 2006 Wikipedia thread discussing potential ideas for a site mascot, an anonymous user suggested an OS Tan style anime girl called Wikipedia Tan. There was overwhelming support for the anime mascot, who had twin pigtails, a maid outfit, and 2 puzzle pieces in her hair. However, some feared that she would make the site look too amateur or childish, while others pointed out that Wikipedia had really nothing to do with anime and so she could be seen as misleading. She eventually lost out to the Wikipedia, a quote shy little bug who sits under trees and avoids controversy or conflict. However, googling Wikipedia mascot to this day will pretty much solely turn up results for Wikipedia Tan, so it's clear who ended up being more popular in the long run. Wikipedia co-creator Jimmy Wales famously hated the character, writing, "I don't like Wikipedia Tan and I never have. I recognize that some people do and I'm not particularly agitated about it, but my name should not be invoked in a way that might lead some to believe that I approve." This may or may not have had something to do with a lot of creepy comments praising her for being a quote-unquote lolly, since she looked like a young girl with pigtails, but also wore a maid outfit and definitely had NSFW art. So yeah, I totally get why the co-creator wanted to distance himself from that. By 2007, the OS Tan fandom was booming, but with the release of Windows Vista, it seemed that no one could agree on a design. Even to this day, Vistan is not one character, but rather a vague collection of different character designs. There were tons of proposed designs by 2chan users, but for some reason none of them actually incorporated any characteristics of Windows Vista and were basically just random designs. The most popular were Vistake, who had this sort of metallic magical girl theme going on with a bright red and grey outfit, and Vizbu, a young grey-haired ninja girl. It's kind of hilarious that Windows Vista, which has one of the most iconic recognizable aesthetics today, especially with the Fruitager era resurgence, had such a hodgepodge of random unrelated designs that no one could agree on. This is partly because, removing those rose-tinted glasses, reviews for Vista at the time were pretty mixed. Some loved it, others didn't, and it was kind of seen as messy and less cohesive as other OSs. But I also think that the lack of one cohesive Vistan design is reflective of the state of the fandom at the time. Everyone wanted to make the next big OS Tan, the next Mi Tan or 95 Tan, and so when Vista was released, it was a free-for-all as artists scrambled to make the definitive Vista design. The process was far less collaborative and more competitive, so no wonder many of the proposed designs were kind of random and not really very well thought out. One of the better designs was called Chivistan. She had long long flowing hair in the colors of the default Vista background and a collar with the Windows logo on it. Like many other tans, she had a magical girl theme and carried a large magic staff. However, even this design feels kind of lacking when compared to how rich Vista was with design elements to pull from. And things weren't all sunshine and rainbows in the fandom either. While a growing fandom means more fans, it also means more detractors, and this was especially true for OS tans as they made their way to the West. In 2007, Wired infamously included OS tans in a list of the lamest technology mascots ever, calling them saucer-eyed girls with underwear management issues. Many mocked OS tans for being lame and nerdy, a basement dweller's wet dream in the form of a computer who has literally come to life as a half-naked anime girl. And some of these criticisms were indeed valid. Many OS tans were designed to fit into this kind of perfect waifu archetype. Tiny waist, huge boobs that corresponded with memory size, for lore reasons. Always positioned so the camera was slightly upskirt, always wearing some kind of leotard, swimsuit, lingerie type outfit. Not only that, but their personalities often reflected this weird fantasy of a girl who is shy, demure, and innocent, for lack of a less creepy word, and yet still also very sexualized. It didn't help that a lot of the OS tans were depicted as younger girls, and this is in part thanks to the Mo art style that was popular at the time, but also a lot of them were just outright depicted as children or preteens. And yet, a large chunk of the fan art was NSFW, or at least suggestive. Again, I know there's gonna be people that say, oh, she's an operating system, she's a 13-year-old girl, but she's also literally just code, she's a drawing, why are you getting mad? You can argue with a wall, or leave a long, angry comment in the comment section. But while that stuff is indeed creepy, you can't tar the entire fandom or the concept of OS tans with the same brush. Sure, there were a lot of Dr. Nortons in the crowd who were only interested in the OS tans as waifus, but there were also tons of fans who loved making designs and developing the lore. They made comics showing comedic interactions between the tans, wrote fanfics, partook in all of the inside jokes in the fandom, made merch, did cosplay, and more. There is a genuine appeal to all of these characters and their personifications as home computers and systems that we use daily. And it turns out that Microsoft itself was catching on to this fact and was soon to reveal the very first official OS tan. With the upcoming release of Windows 7 in 2009, Microsoft decided to use the booming popularity of the fandom in order to advertise their new system. And so the most iconic and legendary OS tan was born, Nanami Madobi. Nanami Madobi, with the word Nana meaning 7 and Madobi meaning by the window, is a blue-haired girl wearing a light blue business outfit, short skirt, and stockings. The Windows colors can be found throughout her design, from her clover-shaped hair clip to the brooch on her bow to the bottom of her skirt and even faintly in her eyes. After almost a decade of unofficial OS tans, Nanami bridged the gap between niche internet culture and real life and was considered by many to be the very first official OS tan, despite the fact that she wasn't actually made by Microsoft, at least not exactly. She was actually created by a company called Windows 7 Mania, an organization that aimed to promote Windows products in Japan. It was a subsidiary of a company called Techno Alliance Corp, which itself was an official partner of Microsoft. So she wasn't directly made by the company, but rather an affiliated partner company. In an interview with the BBC, a spokesperson for Microsoft Japan denied any involvement with the character, writing, "Although OS tan for Windows, known as Nanami Madobi, is not an official character nor marketing initiative run by Microsoft, we are delighted to see great enthusiasm among our user community over OS tan and Windows products." Despite this claim, it's pretty clear from the evidence that whether they created her or not, she was indeed used as a marketing tool by Windows. When ordering Windows 7, they ran a promotion where the first 7,777 copies sold included an exclusive CD which featured different Nanami Madobi themed wallpapers and themes. It even included an original song supposedly sung by Nanami called 7 Color Generator. Another exclusive OS tan CD was released shortly after, this time promoting Windows 7 Ultimate DSP. There was even an official commercial created by Windows 7 Mania that aired in Japan, which featured Nanami promoting Windows 7 and its various features with an interesting emphasis on encouraging users to build their own PCs.
これくらいの PC ケースにマザーボード、CPU、メモリ、グラフィックボード、ハードディスク、DVD、出来上がり。 お好みの自作パソコンを皆さんも作っちゃいましょう。
It's honestly really weird and strange to me how vehemently Microsoft denied any involvement with Nanami Midobi despite how much they ended up using her for marketing and promotion. Maybe they weren't yet ready to associate with this kind of online otaku audience, maybe they saw anime as too childish for their brand, or maybe they just didn't want floods of NSFW art of their mascot. Whatever their hang-up was, they got over it fast, and it wasn't long before they were creating and endorsing their own OS tans. Inspired by Nanami Midobi and the Bing girls, which, look, they made Bing sexy, what else do you want me to say? Microsoft Taiwan decided to create their own official mascot for the 2010 release of Microsoft Silverlight called Hikaru Aizawa.
大家好，更酷的是 Windows Phone 7也是使用 Silverlight 的技术哦。
A visual novel game was created for the promotion where you could customize your own character and interact with Hikaru and her 3 sisters. Also, I have to note here that the customization only allowed you to choose a PNG from your computer to be the face, resulting in the ending screen looking like this. Another Aizawa girl was created to promote Internet Explorer in Singapore, Inori Aizawa. She wears a hair clip in the shape of the Internet Explorer logo, and the Windows logo is stitched into her collar. The logo also appears on her belt, and her entire outfit is white and blue to match the web browser's colors. She was initially announced at Anime Festival Asia, where she debuted in her own anime short, which should give you an idea of how serious this OS Tan stuff was getting at this point. Windows Azure was a cloud computing platform, and with its release came the debut of Claudia Midobi, the second member of the Midobi family. An official page for Windows Azure on the Microsoft website from 2011 contains a character bio for Claudia, where we learn that she's a university graduate, an aspiring Azure developer, and also Nanami's cousin. Again, this is another instance where Nanami Midobi is included in official Microsoft materials and promotions even after they denied any involvement with her. There's actually a series of comics on the website that uses Claudia, her brother Claude, Nanami, and a new character called Tencho to promote Windows Azure. In the story, Nanami works at a PC parts store run by Tencho where they build PCs, servers, and run an online shop. Tencho is suspicious of cloud technology since it's new and doesn't use the physical servers that he's used to. However, when the shop server goes down, Claudia helps them by calling her brother, an experienced cloud engineer, and they come up with a solution to use Windows Azure. It's honestly such a fun way to introduce and advertise a product, and really gets to the heart of why so many people find OS Tans endearing. They personify these complicated systems as fun, silly characters who get up to hijinks while also being helpful and educational. Don't be intimidated by the complexities of Windows Azure, she's just a cute girl with glasses. No need to be confused downloading Windows 7, let Nanami Midobi guide you through it. Don't be scared of Norton Antivirus, it's okay, actually not that one. With the highly anticipated release of Windows 8, 2 new official OS Tans were created, You and I Midobi, obviously a pun on the words you and I. The two are sisters with brownish orange hair who wear school uniforms, with You being the sensible older sister and I being the more outspoken younger one. 2 limited edition versions of Windows 8 were sold with designs of both You and I on the packaging, which also included exclusive voice packs and wallpapers of the 2 sisters. Crunchyroll hosted a Windows 8 launch party in Japan where mugs, wristbands, and other merch was given out to attendees, many of whom came dressed in OS Tan cosplays. And then there's this guy who's dressed up as It's clear from these images that the OS Tan fandom was huge, growing more and more with every new official Tan release. So it's surprising and kind of sad that the next Windows release would bring us the final official OS Tan. Toko Midobi, the Windows 10 OS Tan, was officially announced on July 31st of 2015. She has whitish blue hair, a blue uniform, and a tie in the colors of the panels in Windows 10. She also has 2 Windows-shaped hair clips. During a 2015 winter campaign, she featured on the box of special editions of Windows 10 Pro, which also included an exclusive audio story about the Midobi family, as well as 2 wallpapers featuring all of the official Windows girls. Unfortunately, beside a couple of other collaborations and merch items, the last official OS Tan girl went out with a whisper rather than a bang. She was considerably less popular than the other Midobi girls and even the unofficial OS Tans. From this point on, Microsoft discontinued their anime girl mascots, which not only marked the death of the Midobi family but the gradual decline of the OS Tan fandom. It seemed that the glory days of OS Tan were over. The official Windows OS Tarn girls gradually disappeared from marketing over the years until they vanished entirely. In January of 2020, Nanami Midobe would send a final tweet from her official account to inform followers that support for Windows 7 was ending and she would be quote-unquote graduating, which was basically Microsoft's way of killing her off. Windows 7 support has ended, but from now on, enjoy Windows 10 and building your own PC with Toko-chan. I'm truly happy to have met all of you and thank you so much for everything until now. Goodbye, #Nanami graduation. Windows 11 was released in 2021 and was the first Windows operating system in over a decade to launch without an official OS Tarn, if you include the technically not official but also definitely official Nanami Midobe. While many blame the failure of Toko Midobe and the discontinuation of the Windows OS Tarn girls for the decline of the fandom, it's more complicated than that. In my opinion, OS Tarns were doomed from the moment that Microsoft got involved all the way back in 2011. And that may sound kind of crazy, so let me explain. The first OS Tarn, Mitan, was born out of frustration and annoyance. She was designed to highlight the many issues and quirks with Windows Millennium Edition. She was clumsy and volatile because she was an anthropomorphization of an operating system that constantly crashed and ran into issues. She was fun and silly and flawed, and that's why so many people loved her. Same with all of the other early OS Tarns. They had defined personalities that turned annoying issues into goofy jokes and personality quirks. They each embodied their operating system in subtle ways, from the way they looked to the way they behaved. Older systems were depicted as being more mature and out of touch. Systems that were infamously bugged were unhinged and random. Competing systems in the real world would be depicted as mortal enemies in the world of OS Tarn. It was all of these flaws and quirks that made the characters so fun and lovable. But when Microsoft officially got involved, that's when the OS Tarns became a lot flatter, a lot more lifeless, less fun and silly. Don't get me wrong, I think Nanami Midobe is awesome and iconic, but she could never embody the flaws and quirks of the operating system she was based on like the other OS Tarns because she was a promotional tool for Windows. How could she ever truly represent Windows 7 and all of its quirks when she was created before the operating system even released to the public and people got to try it for themselves? She had a great design, sure, but a bland personality, and this trend continued throughout the mid to late 2010s. Official OS Tarns and even a lot of fan-made Tarns stopped being kooky, flawed personifications of operating systems and instead became a competition of who could make the coolest design. Additionally, over time, as the flat design era came into style, Windows operating systems became more bland and, for lack of a better word, kind of soulless. I mean, when you look at Windows 10 or 11, is there even really much you can personify about it? There's nothing really unique to them. I don't want to entirely say that this is yet another case of corporate killing creativity, because I think what Windows did in terms of embracing these OS Tarn characters and making their own anime girl mascots was really cool, and the fandom wouldn't be what it is today without this official Windows OS Tarn era. But I think it's unfortunate that a lot of the later OS Tarns became so bland and sanded down when the weird, unhinged energy of the originals is what made them so popular in the first place. Earlier this year, the official Windows account posted a short video to YouTube Shorts and Instagram explaining the history of OS Tarns, though it was pretty vague and incorrectly called Nanami Midobe Windows 8 Tarn. As a side note, according to the Windows 7 Mania archive, the Midobe girls are not considered to be OS Tarns and are their own completely unrelated things, so never relate them, never call them OS Tarns, but as you may have noticed, I've still called them OS Tarns throughout this whole video because, you know, they basically are. Comments on these short videos were pretty mixed, with many enthusing over the mascots and asking Windows to bring them back, and others criticizing the video for its lack of research or care put into the topic. To give them credit, it's kind of impossible to capture the entire history and all of the information of something like OS Tarns that began on 2chan many decades ago, but I also think it really goes to show how out of touch Windows are to their own creations all of these years later. Today, though the fandom has been in decline for a while, it's having a little bit of a resurgence thanks to that kind of Y2K nostalgia Fruitager era aesthetic that's really popular at the moment. With how corporate, ad-infested, and homogenized the internet can be today, a lot of people are looking back to a time where the internet was more colorful, more zany, when it felt like a place to explore, learn, and make friends, even with your own operating system. The original OS Tarns weren't weren't corporate tools. They were goofy, sometimes uncomfortably horny, and undeniably the product of a bunch of internet nerds just joking around. And that's why so many people liked them. The personification of AI, from the r/myboyfriendisAI subreddit to the popularity of apps like Replica, is seen as a modern disease, a product of internet brain rot, technology taken too far for too long. But the long history of OS Tans reminds us that this has been a thing for a while now. It comes from that human desire to personify things we don't understand and make light of things that confuse and annoy us. But unlike AI, the OS Tan community was born from and thrived off of human creativity, from comic strips and artwork to music and cosplay. It revolved around girls made out of code and computer chips, yet it was undeniably human, fueled by collaborative world building, art, and imagination. The golden age of OS Tans may be over, but their weird legacy as cyber nerd cat girls, sword-wielding warriors, half-fish freaks, and magical girl idols will live on. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed this video topic. It was so much fun to cover. My researcher Laura did such an incredible job collating all of the information and history. It was just a blast to write the script and delve into the lore of these characters. It's so long. I'm sure that I might have missed things or maybe gotten things wrong, hopefully not, but if there's any other aspects of this this weird lore that I've missed out, please feel free to leave it in the comments. If you have any rare $700 merch, please let me know. I would love to know. I would love to see photos. I think this topic is so fun, so ridiculous, and it really harkens back to a time when a lot of companies were trying things like this, like kind of incorporating this internet lore meme shit into their advertising, and it's just ridiculous. I love it. I hope that you enjoyed the topic. As you will see, I am in a new place now. This is my new setup. Hopefully I'll be able to tweak things a little. I'm not sure how the sound is gonna sound. I've been working on it, but hopefully it sounds okay. And yeah, I have like a whole lighting thing now, so yeah, hopefully it looks good. Have all my stuff in the background. I've lost many Garfields in the move to this new place, but hopefully I'll build the collection back up. And yeah, thank you so much for sticking around, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye! A huge thank you to my Garfield overlords over on Patreon: Mrs. Sylve, Bitterkapu, Booskaboo, Mazapan Eating Duck, Leopold the Rabbit, Tony Terrors, Volgix, Sophie Jane Dewberry, Eminem, Usurpius, Trouser Mouse, Ocean Gremlin, Curvish Sundown, Bunzo, Blogbag, Zoe Mars, Eden Cassidy, Magdalena, Kia J. Parker, Hazy, Stanley, Blue Wolf, Katrina Lakes 5e Stuff, Michelle Olsen, Matt LRJ, A Riddle Wrapped in an Enigma Hidden by a Question Mark, Doug, Dana Homegardner, Simon, Xavier Arajo, Samery Brayley, Helm Hamburger Hand, Dozo Blint, Astrian Vortex, and Jesse Chisholm. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. It means the world. If you want to join these guys over on Patreon, the link will be in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Bye!